Hey everybody, it's You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions. And this week, my first question comes from Patrick Dodds, who says, Steve, I'm told we're living in the second golden age of television. I'm sure many, if not most, programs listed under prestige television are quite fine on a critical level, but frankly, I shy away from just about all of it. The reason being is it looks so damned dark and nihilistic. Anyway, I want to ask you why prestige television is that way it is. Is my assessment off kilter, my head being up a particular orifice, if you will? Or are there high-quality programs out there currently I'm missing that have some humanistic, inspirational element and give the audience some hope, or at least temporary escape? I do think you're right that the second golden age of television so far has been defined largely by darker series. I mean, if you look at some of the signature shows that are sort of looked at as the exemplars of this second golden age of television, you see stuff like The Sopranos, like The Wire, like Mad Men, Breaking Bad, shows that tend to be dark and tend to not have overly optimistic things to say about their characters or about humanity. I don't know why that is. I think this sort of thing happens in cycles. I think if you look at any form of popular media, be it mainstream cinema or comic books or mainstream literature or TV, things move in cycles. There are periods where people seem way more interested in darker stories, in grittier stories, and stories that are more depressing and more morally ambiguous. And then it comes around where people are into things that are lighter and more funny and sunny and optimistic. And for whatever reason, the most critically acclaimed shows of the last 10, 15 years or so have tended to be those darker, more morally complex, more pessimistic series. As for things that are on TV now that maybe don't fit that mold but are still really good, it's hard to say because again, I don't get a chance to watch as much TV as I might otherwise like to. I have only seen I've only caught the first 4 or 5 episodes of it. I'm way behind on it, but there's a show on the CW called Crazy Ex-Girlfriend that is fantastic from what I've seen of it. I've only, like I say, I haven't seen any of it really since before Christmas. I just haven't had a chance to catch up on it, but what I've seen of it is just tremendous. It's just a delightful show. It's really, really funny, but it also gets into some really human stuff, really well written. And it's a musical show, which will shock many of you who know of my well known and outspoken disdain for musicals. But it's a really, really terrific show. So if you haven't seen that, I would recommend checking that out as one possibility for a really, really excellent show that is on the air now that is not in that dark, nihilistic vein. Chris Abbey. I keep hearing about third-wave feminism as a deleterious thing. Personally, I consider myself a feminist full stop. Okay, there's a whole bunch of intersectionalities that go along with it, but my personal definition includes those. So I never bothered to research the term. Now that I have, I'm doubly confused by the butthurt some seem to feel about it. I know anyone who insists on using the term egalitarian is, by their definitions of the term, not one, but I can't see what the problem is. Supposedly, 3WF, for short, is reacting against the fringe, anti-men, anti-mother of the 2WF. Okay, fine, though the number of feminists who actually believed in an anti-men, anti-mother feminism is roughly equivalent to the number of high school graduates who currently believe Alex Jones is the voice of the Messiah. If 3WF is a thing, the people in the movement want everyone to have choices and to live free of coercion, and to help people who have been ignored or dismissed, which is egalitarian. I leave it to you, a wise one. What am I missing? You are missing the biases and prejudices of the people who object to third-wave feminism. I think it comes down to that. There is resistance to change, which people have. You know, everybody has a certain resistance to change. You like things the way they are, or at least you are used to things the way they are, or the way things are right now works to your benefit or is something that you can deal with, so you don't want them to change. And you have biases and prejudices, and when a movement or a group of people is calling out the biases and the prejudices that you have, you naturally feel resistant to that. You get defensive. You feel stung by it. You think, there's nothing wrong with me. And I think a lot of the resistance to third wave feminism is about that. I was talking to someone just recently, just a couple weeks ago. I was having a chat with someone, and we both sort of laughed at the idea that of all the groups within feminism that people could object to and vilify, they pick third wave feminists, which are the ones that are the most concerned with, minorities and LGBT folk, and the most progressive, and the ones that are that really the third wave started as a critique of feminism, as a critique of second wave feminism, as you mentioned in your question, Chris. It's about it started as an effort to make feminism better and to make it more inclusive and to make it more aware of the concerns of black women, of gay women, of trans women, of women who have been marginalized and ignored, not only in society in general, but also within the feminist community. So it's a good thing. It's an attempt to be more progressive, to be more inclusive, to call out racism and to call out exclusion within the movement. And so, of course, that's the group that gets demonized and tarred and feathered by anti-feminists the most. I think it speaks to the prejudices and the biases of the people who have a problem with third wave feminism. And I think it also speaks to ignorance, because a lot of the people who say, well, I think that feminism is fine, it's just third wave feminism that I have a problem with, they have no idea what third wave feminism is. They think it means, these whiny young college students, or they think it means, those feminists on Tumblr. And they don't even know what those things are either. But they hear people talking about feminism. They hear ignorant people on YouTube or in other forms of media talking shit about feminism when they don't know anything about it, when they haven't done any research, when they're not interested in knowing anything about it. All they do is straw man it and demonize it and vilify it, and they take those people as their sources, and they say, okay, now I know about feminism, and now I know that, third wave feminists, they're just the worst. So that's three things. So there you go. It's the resistance to change, it's the personal prejudices and biases of the people who are objecting to third wave feminism, and it is the ignorance of third wave feminism on the part of those people who are objecting due to the fact that they trust untrustworthy sources. So there you go. There are three legs for your table, and it proves that not all three-legged tables are necessarily sturdy. Captain Michael, okay, I'll hit you with a harder one for once. How do you think trans individuals should be handled by the prison system? We had a suicide in the UK because a trans woman was put in an all-male prison. But I've also seen others concerned that putting someone in the prison of their gender will put them at elevated risk compared to other prisoners, as they may be singled out. Regardless of what you do, there is a risk that a trans individual will suffer above and beyond what the law mandates they should for whatever crime they committed. I think the answer to this lies in prison reform, not in how we treat trans people in particular. But in the prison system in general. If we have a prison system, which we definitely do here in the U.S., and from what you say, perhaps the same is true in the U.K., where those kinds of incidents can happen relatively easily, where prisoners can be violent against each other and harm each other and kill each other without very, very much there to prevent it. There's an environment that allows those sorts of things to happen. And that, to me, is the larger problem here. I think that a trans person should be treated as the gender with which they identify. If a trans person identifies as a woman, then she should be treated as a woman. And if she is convicted of a crime, she should go to the prison where you would send a woman. Same thing with a trans man. I think that trans folk should be treated as their gender. And if there are problems with that endanger them because of their trans identity in prison, not only do they need to be protected from that harm, but I think we also need to look at reforming the way we deal with prisons and reforming the way we handle prisons so that those sorts of things just are less likely to happen and are less easy to do, and not just for trans people, for all prisoners. And if you're sent to prison, you're already being punished for a crime, you're already being confined, you're already being removed from society. You shouldn't have to also worry about being a victim of violence within the prison system. And this has been a problem for as long as there have probably been prisons. And it's something that I think really needs to be seriously addressed. Brandon Davis. Hey Steve, thank you for answering my question last week and for considering my suggestion for a 5 Stupid Things About Sovereign Citizens. My next question is about police brutality. What do you think it will take to stop the epidemic in the U.S.? Recently, I've been watching videos on YouTube where police are clearly acting out of line, yet I find other people in the comment section saying things like, if he or she would just comply, they wouldn't receive the shooting, beating, and tasing that they deserved. Heck, there was one guy getting kicked in the face as he was being handcuffed. By the way, he was also black. How do you deal with comments like that? Personally, when I disagree with these individuals, I always point out that the police are the professionals in the situation. The suspects are not. Maybe you can shed some light on how to convince others that it's not only a real problem, but needs to stop. I find it frustrating when video evidence is so clear. I share that frustration. It's difficult to know what to do when there are not only videos like the ones you described, but a handful of them that have gone viral and that have been shown on the nightly news, like the Eric Garner video, where it shows very clearly that the police are acting inappropriately, at least from my standpoint. You know, you watch that video and you think, what are these people doing? Clearly this is wrong. Something has to be done about this. And yet, not only do the police not suffer any real punishment for it, but there are people who watch that same video who say, oh, I don't see the problem with what they did. I think what they did was completely appropriate. I think a lot of it is cultural. I think both everyday ordinary citizens and police are taught that the simple act of non-compliance with a police officer is justification for excessive force. I mean, they wouldn't call it excessive force. I suppose they would call it justified force. But the mere act of not doing what a police officer tells you to do should be justification for a cop getting physical with you. I'm troubled by that. I have a problem with that. I think that a police officer should be trained and should have the aim in most situations to de-escalate things, not to escalate things. And if a person is not posing any obvious threat, is not armed, is not being belligerent, is not being erratic or unstable, and all they are doing is just being reluctant to do what the police officer is asking them to do, I don't think that in and of itself should be enough justification for a cop to get physical with somebody. I have a real problem with that. So that's part of it. Part of it is also making the distinction between being against police officers acting wrongly and being against police officers. There's a big difference there. You can be against police officers acting wrongly and not be against the police in general. You can be against the culture of racism and white supremacy and the widespread permissive attitude toward police brutality in many American police departments and not be anti-police. In fact, if you want to be pro-police, you should be against all of those things. And that's a message that really needs to be sent. I mean, it's being sent, but it's not coming across. It's a message that needs to be gotten across. That if you support the police, if you think the police are a necessary institution and a good institution, then you should be in favor of rooting out these biases and prejudices, these systemic racism, these systemic structures in these institutions that allow police officers to get away with these sorts of crimes, that inculcate this attitude in police officers that you know, you are justified in using force against a person even if they are unarmed, even if there's no indication that they're going to be dangerous at the slightest provocation. And I mean, I don't pretend to know how to do that. I have no idea how to do that. But it's definitely something that needs to happen. Jim Nestor, hi Steve, what are your thoughts on Alex Kurtzman's forthcoming Star Trek show? Well, first I want to begin with a slight correction there, Jim. It is actually, technically speaking, Brian Fuller's Star Trek show. Alex Kurtzman is an executive producer, as is Brian Fuller, but Brian Fuller is the credited creator and is going to be the showrunner when the show begins. I'm really excited about it. I mean, it's hard to say what my thoughts are on it because literally all we know at this point is that it's going to be a Star Trek show. It's going to be aired on, or streamed, I suppose, on CBS's online streaming service. It's going to be created and run by Brian Fuller, and it's going to involve new characters. It's not going to be like a continuation of the J.J. Abrams movies. It's going to be apparently a different ship and a completely different original crew. That's really all we know, and some of that is even speculation. Like we don't know what the premise is going to be. We don't know what the characters are going to be. We don't know what the setting is going to be. We have no real knowledge of the show yet. But having said that, I'm very optimistic and I'm very excited about it. I have liked both of the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies. I am a little hesitant about the next one just because the trailer made it seem just like a generic space action movie instead of like a Star Trek movie. But I'm going to go see it. I'm looking forward to it. I'm open-minded and hoping that it will also be a good movie. I like the new aesthetic. I like the new Star Trek. And I also think that Star Trek is best when it's a TV series. Even though I have really, really liked a lot of the Star Trek movies, I think Star Trek is just a TV show. It's a series. It's something that you take an hour of a week, instead of 2 hours of every couple years. I just think that is the format that plays to the strengths of Star Trek. So I'm looking forward to it. I really am. I'm optimistic. And I hope that Brian Fuller's previously stated ambitions of making it a very progressive show and a very diverse show are allowed to come to fruition. He has said in the past that he would love to do a Star Trek show where the captain was played by Angela Bassett and the first officer was played by Rosario Dawson. I don't know if those are going to be allowed to happen, but that idea, that image in my mind of a Star Trek show like that is really, really cool and really, really exciting to me. So I hope that the show that actually happens bears some resemblance to that imaginary show that Brian Fuller has previously fantasized about. Becca Hawkins. Hi, Steve. I used to be afraid of the Siamese cats and the song they sing in the Disney movie Lady and the Tramp when I was little. It's interesting because others I've talked to loved that scene when they were kids. Of course, I wasn't aware of the implicit racism in the scene when I was little. The song seemed to play on white Americans' fears about Asian Americans and Asian immigrants, not to mention that a white woman provided the voice for the cats. But thinking about it now, in light of the fact that the scene scared me so much as a kid, makes me realize why they scared me. The way they were drawn came off as very sinister and devilish, and the scene suggests they are going to attempt to steal a sleeping baby's milk before Lady stops them. Were any moments in Disney films like this that scared you as a child, or any scene in a film from your childhood that you found frightening? Becca. I didn't actually watch many Disney movies as a child, so I can't think of a scene like that from a Disney movie that frightened me, but the first one that comes to mind when I read your question is the transformation scene in the Incredible Hulk TV series, when David Banner would become Lou Ferrigno, when Bill Bixby would transform into Lou Ferrigno and become the Incredible Hulk. And what got me was the combination of the white contact lenses and the sort of shocked look on David Banner's face when he would start to change. He would always be laying somewhere with his head turned from the camera. Then he would turn to camera and his eyes would just pop open and then you'd get that music sting on the soundtrack to correspond, like ding, like uh-oh, he's turning into the Hulk. When I was a little kid, that scared the shit out of me. I liked the show, but I would turn away when he was turning into the Hulk, or I would get up and go out of the room and come back. I really, really was freaked out by him transforming into the Hulk. And now, as a grown-up, I watch that old Hulk show, and I love the whole thing. It's one of my favorite things ever, and I love the transformation scene. I love the white eyes. I love the music. I think it's just awesome. But as a kid, yeah, it really freaked me out. It really scared me. And yeah, it's just one of those things. I don't know. I don't know what it was about that as a child that disturbed me so, but it really got to me. And now I just think it's great. So, you know what else I think is great? The fact that, I'm not even going to try for a segue this time, the fact that it's time for
the lightning round. Rapid fire questions, glib and adequate answers.
The Insane Pumpkin Carver. Could you please record a You Had to Ask episode completely naked from the waist down? You don't have to show it. We trust your word. Done. Kevin Logan. Is this the way to Amarillo? Kevin, I'm not your GPS. All right? Ask, Morgan Freeman is a GPS voice now. Ask Morgan Freeman if it's the right way to Amarillo. I don't know. I don't even know where you're starting from, man. Don't tell me where you're starting from. I don't care. Ask Morgan Freeman if it's the right way to Amarillo. Lucas Hackett, One Angry Brony. Hey, Steve, which Power Ranger is better? The Red Ranger, the Pink Ranger, the Black Ranger, the Blue Ranger, the Yellow Ranger, or the kick-ass Green Ranger? I detect a somewhat loaded question, Lucas. I'm going to say the Red Ranger. You know why? Because the Red Ranger is the one who got screwed by the Green Ranger when the Green Ranger came in as a Johnny-come-lately interloper, and then he was promoted to White Ranger and the leader of the team. What bullshit is that? The Red Ranger, who had been a perfectly fine leader and a good ranger, was all of a sudden passed over and lost his leadership position to the White Ranger. That's bullshit. So I'm going to go with the Red Ranger out of solidarity. He got screwed. The Red Ranger was screwed. Piker Eyes, what would it take to get you to watch all 3 of the Hobbit films and all 3 Lord of the Rings films back to back? What would it take for you to endure that much torture? Would it require someone to rig your face like in A Clockwork Orange? Would you become sick at the very sight of short people with fuzzy feet or epic beards and axes? It would take, yeah, there would have to be restraints involved. I would never sit through all of those movies, one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. It's just not something that would ever remotely be happening. So yeah, there would have to be restraints involved. Absolutely. I don't even, not even Jason with a D could get me to do that. Unless, again, I were sedated or drugged or restrained in some way. Ahoyerno, how many of those caps have you gone through? I see one in the back. How long do they last? A couple years. I replace them usually every couple years. It depends. This one actually has lasted a while. I've been relatively easy on this one. It just depends on when they start looking shitty and worn out, I get a new one. Jack Coyer, hey Steve, first-time commenter, long-time compulsive observer. And by the way, Jack, I did edit your question down because you asked a lot of questions, but I did want to get this one in because it was interesting. What is your favorite film by your least favorite director, and your least favorite film by your favorite director? Or failing that, just a couple of films that disappointed you from directors you like or impressed you from directors you aren't that fond of. I wouldn't say he's my least favorite director, but he's one of my least favorite directors. It's Zack Snyder, and my favorite film from Zack Snyder is his film of Watchmen. I thought Watchmen was really, really terrific and generally an underrated movie. A lot of people don't really like Watchmen, but I thought Watchmen was terrific. Specifically the theatrical cut. The director's cut is too long and just ruins the whole thing, but the theatrical cut of Watchmen is really, really outstanding to me. Least favorite film by my favorite director, I mean, I don't know, I guess my favorite director is Stanley Kubrick. My least favorite Stanley Kubrick film, gosh, I don't know. It might be Lolita, actually. My least favorite Kubrick film, it might be Lolita. Because, I mean, I think Lolita is a good movie, but yeah, there are some problems there. And it doesn't measure up to the best of Kubrick's films. So that would probably be my answer. David Meyer, lightning round question. Who performs the announcement of the lightning round question? That's me, baby. The lightning round. That's me. Mead Hands, I love when you tell your question askers, fuck you. There's a question. Can you just give me a vicious fuck you? Fuck you! Was that okay? Nick Hepler, hey Steve, do you ever encounter complete strangers in public who know you only through your YouTube channel? If so, what is your usual response? No, that never happens. I am nowhere near famous enough or well-known enough to be recognized like out in public by people for being on YouTube. That it has happened once in the last 6 years. So no, it just doesn't happen. I'm nowhere near popular enough. Jack McMorrow, does life get better? Well, here's the thing, Jack. On the long-term, like human history, big picture scale, I think that yes, life does get better. If you look at the average quality of life for a person living on planet Earth 1,000 years ago and you compare it to the average quality of life of a person living on planet Earth today, I think there's definitely been improvement. So, and I think you could say the same thing if you did the same comparison from the average person living today and the average person living 1,000 years from now. I believe that. I think that history bears that out. But as an individual, that might not help you very much. I don't know. There is no guarantee. There's no guarantee that life will get better, but there's no guarantee that life will get worse either. The only thing that is guaranteed about life is that it goes on until it doesn't. And as long as it goes on, there's possibility. And within that possibility, there is the chance that things will get better. And if we cling to that chance, if we cling to that possibility that things will get better, from that, we can derive hope. And that's really the best we can do. And that is your thought of the day. And that's it for the lightning round. That's it for the questions. Before I get out of here, I'm going to give a shout out to a very deserving YouTuber. This week, the shout out goes to Atheist Atheist, the channel brought to us by the Department of Redundancy Department. Much respect to Firesign Theater. Atheist Atheist is a really, really, really awesome channel. Criminally undersubbed. Very few subscribers. Let's see if we can do something about that. Atheist Atheist is a guy who has done videos he did a really excellent video about the sort of the basis of morality and atheistic examination of where morality might come from. And he also has done a couple videos that have been critical of popular atheist arguments or popular ideas within atheism, which have been absolutely tremendous. Excellent. He did a video about a month ago that I just saw recently, playing off of that now very fabled clip with Ben Affleck and Sam Harris on Bill Maher's show, and their discussion about Islam. He used that as a jumping off point for a really, really great video that made some excellent points about, for instance, the perils of criticizing a group from outside the group when you have never been a member of the group, how it's very problematic to criticize a group that you are not a member of and have never been a member of. Really, really, really good stuff. He's a really sharp, articulate, intelligent guy, and a great voice. He could be on radio. Really good voice. So check out Atheist Atheist. Absolutely outstanding. Highest recommendation. Check out that channel, please. And check out the Lemme Listen podcast. These are podcasts created by the great Jason Harding, Jason with a D, the creator of Opinionville here on YouTube. He produces 3 excellent podcasts, and they are Lemme Finish, which is co-hosted by Finite Atticus, and it's just hysterical. There is American Monsters and How to Destroy Them, an improv comedy podcast dealing with cryptozoology that is also just hilarious, and I've often said it's like a combination of Coast to Coast AM and like Twin Peaks or something. It's really, 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 really funny. And also the one that is nearest and dearest to my heart, Late Seating, which is a movie review podcast that Jason co-hosts with me, where we look at classic films or notoriously bad films. We give them a fresh look, a fresh review. We summarize the plot and make fun of it as we go along, and we decide whether or not this movie deserves the reputation, either for good or bad, that it has earned through the years. It's a really, really fun show. I encourage all of you to listen to it and to listen to all of the Lemme Listen podcasts by going to LemmeListenPodcasts.com. That's it for me, everybody. I am out of here. Please leave a comment on this video. Ask me your question for next time. Ask me anything about anything. Nothing is too serious. Nothing is too silly. I will answer as many of your questions as I possibly can in the next video. So until then, take care, everybody. Oh, and one more thing. Did you enjoy this video? I hope you did. If you did, please like it and share it and subscribe to this channel if you're not subbed already. And also, please consider helping me to make more videos like this one by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.